What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It's Tuesday, July 14th, 2020, getting into the week. Lots of interesting things to talk about. And as usual, I'm going to talk about news until I run out of news, at which point we'll open the phone lines, let you call in with your comments, questions, opinions, and observations here. And the USS Bonhomme Richard is still on fire out in San Diego. And now there's a ship worker saying that this may not have been an accident after all, but an act of sabotage. So we'll see where that's going to go. But apparently the fire that broke out aboard the USS Bonhomme Richard has damaged the ship beyond repair and may have been sabotage, according to a ship worker who knows the $750 million boat well. A man who goes by the handle Preacher Joe called into the Shepard Ambella show on Monday, where he gave exclusive details about the ship based on his previous experience working in the ship's ammunition magazines as a structural welder over the past 4 decades. So, anyway, let's talk about Julian Maxwell. She was arraigned today. I still have not heard if she made bail or not, but a lot of people were saying that she very well could. She made a $5 million offer to post that much money for her bail. I don't know why she wants to get out on bail. She's going to be a target as soon as she steps out of that prison. You know, I'm sure prison is very uncomfortable. I'm sure about that, but at least she's got some protection around her. Question is, what restrictions is the judge going to put on her movements? Now, the prosecutors are saying she's a flight risk. She has enough money to leave the country and possibly already has fake IDs. So, anyway, let's see. Former federal prosecutor Jamie Nawadeh told the Post, I think this is a close case. Epstein had no chance at bail at all. She's in a very different position. Okay, New York's most famous bail bondsman says Julian Maxwell's $5 million offer will be rejected and should be as much as $100 million to reflect her crimes. Ira Judelson, New York's most famous bail bondsman, said that Jeffrey Epstein's alleged madam will have to significantly increase the $5 million bail package. He claims Maxwell's bail application will be rejected, should be as much as $100 million. Judelson says that if Maxwell does get bail, prosecutors will put cameras in the home where she is staying so they can monitor her 24/7. Kind of reminds me about when Barry Seal was granted bail, and the judge said, "You will stay here in this motel. That's where you're going to be," and that's where the gunman caught up with him. One of Julian Maxwell's victims has urged the judge not to release her on bail today as she makes her first appearance before a New York court. Let me do a really quick search and see if decision has been handed down. Denied bail. Okay, good. So she was denied bail. Now, out in California, attorney Mark Angelucci, known for his work on behalf of Men's Right, was shot and killed outside his California home on Saturday. Angelucci was the founder of the Los Angeles chapter of the National Coalition for Men and the force behind many of the group's lawsuits, and he was featured in the controversial documentary The Red Pill. Now, who would do a thing like that? So let's talk a little bit about COVID-19. There's a new study out on COVID-19 antibodies, and it suggests that immunity fades within weeks, just weeks. Any antibodies you've generated, they just go away. And the authors, who are British, say this puts a nail in the coffin of the idea of herd immunity. That, you know, you can have coronavirus and then a couple of months later you can have it again here. Over in Serbia, protesters have rocked Belgrade and other cities in response to President Aleksandar Vucic's reintroduction of government curfews over the surging coronavirus cases. The Serbs protest being lied to for political ends. Serbian police fired tear gas and were dressed head to toe in riot gear as demonstrators, mostly young people, assaulted police on Tuesday and Wednesday. So the whole world is going crazy here right now. Up in Ireland, people can now be jailed for not wearing face masks on public transportation. Transport workers have been urged not to police new face mask laws that come into force today amid fears of conflicts between passengers. Union chiefs have highlighted the death of a driver in France as evidence of the danger to workers. All right, out in Colorado, Governor Jared Polis has come under fire this weekend after he called residents who do not wear masks to curb coronavirus selfish bastards. On Sunday, Polis posted on his campaign Facebook account to remind Colorado residents that scientific studies supported the use of face coverings and face masks in public places to help reduce the spread of the virus. Then he added, so if you're a selfish bastard and wearing a mask to protect others isn't enough of a reason to do so, then maybe you're protecting yourself is. I think the issue is, are the masks really effective? And there's some studies that say, yes, they are. And some studies say, no, they aren't, especially the homemade ones. Apparently, American Airlines is now investigating Ted Cruz after they caught him without a face mask in the first-class cabin of a flight Sunday. And apparently he was drinking coffee. Now, we're booked on American Airlines for our upcoming trip, and we were told point blank, there are no liquids in the cabin, there's no food in the cabin, no water, no soft drinks, no alcohol, no coffee, so you keep your face mask on all the time. So maybe in first class they serve coffee, but if they're serving coffee, they know he has to take his mask off, or at least down, enough to sip the coffee. Anyway. So apparently, there was a photo taken by a Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee operative of Ted Cruz with his mask off, drinking coffee in first class. Getting on back to COVID itself, scans reveal heart damage in over half of COVID-19 patients in study. The study involved 1,216 patients, of whom 813 had been diagnosed with COVID-19. 298 were deemed probable cases. Due to the design of the study, the remaining 105 were assumed to have COVID-19. That's a bit of a leap there. Anyway, the participants were from 69 countries across 6 continents. Each had an echocardiogram, a type of ultrasound scan for the heart, between April 3rd and 20th. Of the total 1,216 patients, 55% had abnormalities in their scan, and 1 in 7 participants had what research described as severe abnormalities, according to the paper published in the journal European Heart Journal Cardiovascular Imaging. I have a problem with the methodology there. They should have done all these scans on the people, there's got to be a before and after. We have no way of knowing if the COVID was responsible for the heart damage, or it's just that segment of the population has that much heart damage from other causes. Anyway, this is a very charming story. Down in Jacksonville, Florida, there's this lady, Mary Daniel, and her husband, Steve, who is permanently impaired, was being housed at Rose Castle at Deerwood, a memory care facility. And because of the COVID-19 isolation, she was not allowed to visit her husband for months. So she went and applied for a job there and got hired. So now she's working in the nursing home that is housing her husband, which means when she's not busy doing something else, she can go in and visit him. Boy, that is dedication. That is dedication, and I certainly wish her well. And apparently the rest of the staff at the home knows exactly what's going on, and they're trying to help her, get things done so she can get back to her husband. That's nice when people pull together that way. All right, getting over to the world of political correctness here. Plymouth Plantation in New England is changing its name to be more inclusive. The Plymouth Plantation Living Museum, 400 years after the Pilgrims first arrived in the New World, is changing its name in order to be more inclusive and respectful of the indigenous communities. There was a lengthy statement on the website explaining the reasoning, which will be completed by the end of the year. And instead of the Plymouth Plantation, it'll be known as the Plymouth Patuxet, to include Native Americans who lived in the region at the time of the settlement. James Madison College at Michigan State University may change its name to expound the Founding Fathers' name from their institution. Now, this one's getting a little serious. Apparently, over this last week, at least 4 Catholic churches in 4 states were vandalized in a string of attacks that have authorities wondering whether religious icons and statues are next to be targeted by anti-racism and anti-fascist protesters. Over at the Washington Post, they're saying the Texas Rangers were a cruel, racist force and argues pro-baseball's team name must go. Call them the Texas Strangers, maybe. So columnists for the Washington Post wasted no time yesterday in piggybacking off the momentum from the Washington Redskins announcement they'll be retiring their name and immediately called for Major League Baseball's Texas Rangers to follow suit. Now, the Navajo Nation has suggested a name for the Washington team. They want it to be named the Code Talkers, which they consider an honorable name for the Navajo, because the Code Talkers, of course, helped the United States secure communications during World War II against Japan in the Pacific Theater. There was a movie done about it called The Wind Talkers, which was another name for it. Of course, Washington Redskins could change their name to the Washington Code Talkers, and they're going to get yelled at about Washington. Washington owned slaves. No, we're named for Washington State. Well, you got to change the name of the state now. It really is getting a little bit out of control. Okay. Apparently, they're now out there saying the phrase low-hanging fruit is racist and reminds blacks of lynching. Now, the Oxford Dictionary defines the phrase low-hanging fruit as a thing or person that can be won, obtained, or persuaded with little effort. I don't see anything racist in there at all. But, you know, these racist searchers, if you will, they're like the witch hunters of Europe who were paid to find witches. And as a result, they saw witches everywhere. You want to get your name in the paper, scream that something is racist. Clouds are racist. They're always white. Well, no, thunderstorm, they're black. We've got to change that. Black clouds have a negative connotation. Up in West Vancouver, British Columbia, they put in a Rainbow Pride crosswalk. It's basically a rainbow set of colors going across the street there. And somebody left a tire mark on this from a too tight of a turn. And it was immediately denounced as a gesture of hate. And the police found the driver of the car and talked to him and said, no, he just took the corner a little too tight and his car skidded a bit, and that was it. Now, as you know, the left has boycotted Goya foods. It has backfired spectacularly. The shelves are empty. Conservative customers are cleaning out the store shelves, especially Hispanics. They're going on in and they're buying the Goya products. They can't keep them on the shelves anymore. And it's being called the Chick-fil-A effect by the Daily Wire. Namely, leftists have called for a boycott over the brand after a CEO publicly praised Trump. Instead, conservatives took matters into their own hands and are reportedly buying more Goya products than they normally would to show support for the company. It's being called a boycott. Now, let's get back here to the McCloskeys. Now, the McCloskeys became famous because when some Black Lives Matter protesters broke through the gate and started up on the private property, they went out front of their own home with 2 legally owned firearms, an AR-15 and a handgun. The wife had the handgun, husband had the AR-15. No shots were fired, but the police came by and confiscated the AR-15. They want the handgun that's now in the hands of the McCloskey's lawyer. Now, Mark McCloskey is saying that they're expecting to be indicted shortly for what we don't know, because the whole idea of the Second Amendment is that you are able to protect your home from criminals, both unofficial and official. Oliver Stone has gone public lambasting Hollywood, saying they're quite mad. And, you know, he's won an Oscar, a BAFTA, a Golden Globe. He directed JFK, which is still considered the benchmark for work about that assassination. Platoon, Midnight Express, The Untold History of the United States. He interviewed Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, in an interview in the New York Times, Stone slammed Hollywood for being too fragile and too sensitive, adding that you can't make a film without a sensitivity counselor or a COVID advisor. It's ridiculous. Now, this is backed up by another article that appeared over in Russia Today about making great movies in Hollywood is difficult. And this anti-white racism that we're seeing will make it impossible. Do you realize that in today's climate, they could not do a remake of Moby Dick? Because, you know, the lead characters are all white. The subordinate characters are all non-white. There are no roles for women, and it depicts cruelty to animals. Now, that began as a joke a little while ago, but if you think about it, it's absolutely true. I was talking to Claire the other day. We were going around the channel on the cable box and saying, there's nothing here worth watching anymore. You know, great art, whether it's film or painting or music or literature or whatever, makes you think. It makes you challenge your assumptions. It makes you ask questions about yourself, from which you will learn about yourself. To go into the theaters these days, and it's just this ultra-liberal, you know, I don't know, maybe they can remake Moby Dick if half the crew is gay or something. Like, yoo-hoo, Captain Ahab, I'm Queequeg, I'm here to harpoon a whale. Well, I can't harpoon a whale, not really, because they're such sensitive little creatures. Anyway, we'll see. Anyway, Hollywood's suffocating new wave of identity politics targets white men, and movies and TV will suffer significantly as a result. You even see this in commercials. You know, a lot of people in color in commercials, and good for them. Okay, but not at the expense of, you know, white males, white straight males, who still form the majority of the population of this country. And when you have a man and a woman in a commercial these days, 9 times out of 10, the woman is the smart one who's got the answers to everything, and the male is portrayed as a goofball. So Hollywood, despite its reputation as a liberal bastion, has long been a hothouse of vicious reactionary sentiments. And this article goes on to basically equate the current climate in Hollywood with McCarthyism from the late 1940s and 1950s, which was a particularly shameful time in Hollywood history. Even remembering that Hollywood has a lot to be shameful for. Now, the actor, Idris Elba, says he disagrees with censorship of racist old sitcoms because viewers should know that people once made shows like this, and freedom of speech must be allowed. He does not agree with censoring old sitcoms because of modern sensibilities about race. Sitcoms including Little Britain, which came under fire because of the use of blackface makeup in some sketches, has been dropped from Netflix, BBC iPlayer, and BritBox following backlash from the viewers. Some viewers, I have no doubt. Okay, here in Indiana, white supremacist Daniel Lewis Lee, who was convicted of murdering a family of 3, is put to death by lethal injection. This is the first federal execution in 17 years as he screams, "I didn't do it," just hours after the Supreme Court rejected a new appeal. And he was supposed to be executed yesterday, and there was a last-ditch effort at the Supreme Court claiming that lethal injection is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court disagreed on that 5-4. All right, getting to domestic politics here, we're seeing a lot of polls saying Biden's ahead here, Biden's ahead there. And there's an article that came out of Sputnik News, why Biden's nationwide lead over Trump says nothing about the election outcome. And the first thing I thought of when I saw this was, well, let's remember 2016, when, you know, the polls were giving Hillary Clinton a 90% lead over Trump's single-digit possibilities. And of course, on election night, things went just a little bit different. And Hillary tried to beat up her campaign manager. So we don't really know what the election will be like based on the polls we're being given by the corporate media. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. And I want to take a moment to issue a heartfelt thank you to every one of our listeners who has, in fact, already donated to Republic Broadcasting. It is greatly appreciated. You are helping to keep us on the air. And those of you who are donating to keep us on the air, thank you very, very much. For the rest of you, and I know money is tight, that's what makes it really, really hard to do these commercials. I mean, you're struggling just as much as we are, if not worse. But every little tiny bit helps. There's no such thing as too small a donation. So the postal address where you can send a check, a money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can phone in a debit or credit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. Okay, article from Russia Today. Wayne Dupree is out there saying the left is showing epic panic because they know a November loss is on their doorstep. The left's anger is intense because they were so close to success with their riots, and now they're terrified Joe Biden will lose his election showdown with Donald Trump. And yes, he will, short of massive cheating. And it raises a certain question because the left is always out there saying that Donald Trump and his followers are dangerous. They're dangerous people. And yet it's the left that's out there rioting in the streets and breaking store windows and throwing over trash cans and setting them on fire and trying to beat up the police. So a little bit of a dichotomy there. Anyway, Wayne goes on to basically say it's time to man up. He's addressing the left and saying, you know, there's still a long way to go, and we shouldn't be screaming about Biden's potential loss because it'll convince other people to just give up the fight. So he's trying to rally the troops, in other words, which sort of telegraphs the fact that, their morale is in trouble. Now, Barack Obama says everybody should be able to vote by mail, and then he hurls a few insults at Donald Trump's claims that it will lead to widespread fraud. And Obama's out there saying voting by mail shouldn't be a partisan issue, even though it clearly is, especially during a pandemic. Everybody should be able to request an absentee ballot and make their voice heard in every election. Little sidebar story that came in earlier today about a family who got an application for an absentee vote in the name of their cat, who has been dead for 12 years. Meanwhile, out in the California primary, it highlights the problems with mail-in voting because more than 100,000 mail-in ballots were rejected by California election officials during the March presidential primary. Now, Obama's concern about voting during a pandemic, there are two solutions. One is you let everybody decide for themselves, are they willing to risk exposure to COVID-19 to go and exercise their franchise, to go and vote? No, I think that's the most immediate solution. The other one is that we have to have a way of voting where individuals can vote, possibly electronically, who knows what, but it's got to be cheat-proof. And here is where Donald Trump is right. You can stuff the ballot box with absentee ballots. People who are counting the votes, they have no way of knowing where that absentee ballot came from. They have no way of knowing if that name really exists, if that's really a voter. Because last I heard, cats can't vote anyway, even if they were still alive. And it concerns me greatly that the Democrats are pushing for mail-in voting for everybody. And out in California, everybody's getting an absentee ballot. It's completely out of control. We haven't even had the election, and I know it's going to be the crookedest election we've ever seen. Now, Zogby is out there conducting their own polls and saying Biden's dismissal support from blacks threatens his election. What does he bring to the table? Well, that's a very, very good question. What does Biden bring to the table? So far, it looks like he's plagiarizing other people's political positions and other people's platforms. There was an interesting video montage that was being shown on Fox the other day where Donald Trump is out there saying, you know, buy American, hire American, and it was intercut with Biden, more or less paraphrasing the same thing. But he wasn't using the exact same words because he wanted to say, this is an original thought by me. Okay, Trump is probably very nervous. No, he shouldn't be nervous, and I'll tell you why. Mary Trump is releasing her so-called tell-all book. It's going to hit the bookshelves this week. And basically the judge, with the attorney rather, Ted Boutros, said the First Amendment forbids prior restraints because they are intolerable infringements on the right to participate in democracy. And he's absolutely right. As far as we know, Mary Trump didn't sign a non-disclosure anyway. So, but here's the thing. Every bit of it that's already been leaked out is stuff everybody already knew. So I'm predicting this is probably going to be a nothing burger. And I certainly have no intention of buying the book. Okay, we got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. And yesterday, the federal court judge overseeing the case against Roger Stone ordered the Department of Justice to provide details of President Trump's decision to commute Stone's sentence, specifically to clarify whether the commutation applies to Stone's full sentence or whether it applies only to the potential jail time. See, the sentence against Roger Stone included a period of home detention under surveillance. And the federal court judge wants to still impose that, and he wants the exact letter of the commutation to see if he can justify imposing some kind of a sentence, non-jail sentence, onto Roger Stone. They don't give up, do they? They need at least one sacrificial lamb to justify all the money and time they spent on this Russiagate hoax. Have you noticed how much our so-called leaders in Washington, D.C. behave like spoiled children on a school playground? They really, really, really do. Out in California, the lockdowns are back. Governor Newsom has ordered bars and movie theaters to close, bans indoor dining, while Los Angeles and San Diego school districts announced students will not return in the fall over the surge in COVID-19 cases. They're going to go to completely remote learning, which hasn't worked out as well as they would like. Of course, you know, it's a real opportunity for homeschooling to take hold. You know, if the public schools aren't letting students in, if the public schools are out there trying to do things over the computer, parents might decide, you know, we'll just take over here. We can spend more time with our kid than this remote teacher. But yeah, sure. Let's do more homeschooling. There's a bright side to this thing here. Anyway, the new school year will begin online. And basically, California's confirmed coronavirus cases increased to 329,162. At least 7,000 people of California have died from the virus. Now, Houston's mayor wants another COVID-19 lockdown. The virus is currently spreading out of control. He wants to have another full lockdown for another 2 weeks to slow down the increase of the new COVID-19 cases. And complicating things is Hong Kong has discovered a new strain of COVID-19 that is 30% more infectious. Apparently, it is still out there mutating. South Africa has reintroduced a ban on alcohol sales to combat the virus pandemic. South Africa's confirmed cases have exponentially soared in the last several weeks to over 250,000 as the government reintroduces restrictions to ban alcohol sales, along with new nighttime curfews, mandatory mask wearing, a move that will hopefully alleviate the strain on the country's hospital system by mitigating the spread of the virus. President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the African nation on Sunday and said the sale of alcohol will be suspended with immediate effect. Now, Japan is accusing China of spreading propaganda and disinformation during the coronavirus pandemic. And I saw this on TV the other day. It's being claimed there's a virologist who fled Hong Kong, is accusing Beijing of a cover-up. Now, I hesitate on this one because we have seen in the past where somebody who's claimed to have escaped the country we happen to hate right now claims to be a defector and then says absolutely everything that supports the cover story against the country. How many Iranian scientists have defected to say that Iran is building a nuclear bomb? How many Iraqi nuclear scientists defected and went on TV saying that Iraq was building a nuclear bomb? You can understand why I'm being a little bit cautious about this. Speaking of alcohol, research is showing that women are drinking more than men to cope with the coronavirus due to psychological distress and the presence of children in the home during the pandemic. Well, we don't have children to deal with here. just each other. But apparently this new study from researchers at the University of South Florida reveals that women are drinking more. They interviewed over 750 U.S. adults about the impact coronavirus had on their alcohol consumption. All righty, let's talk about the international news now. It's getting very, very tense out there. The U.S. rejects the Chinese claim to the South China Sea in a major reversal of Obama-era appeasement. State Department, pardon me. Excuse me about that. The State Department has confirmed the policy change in a press release attributed to Secretary Pompeo. And basically, they're championing a free and open Indo-Pacific, and they're saying they will respect the 12-mile barrier around these islands, but that they don't recognize China declaring all of the area territorial waters, nor do they recognize the Chinese claim on the Spratly Islands, which are contested. U.S. sanctions are part of a multi-front war on Syria, and its long-suffering civilians are the main targets. The U.S. is waging multiple fronts in the war against Syria, including brutal sanctions, while claiming concern over the well-being of Syrian civilians, the vast majority of whom are suffering as a direct result of U.S. policies. On June 17th, the U.S. implemented the Caesar Act, America's latest round of draconian sanctions against the Syrian people to protect them, the government claims. This after years of bombing civilians and providing support to anti-government militants, leading to the proliferation of terrorists who kidnap, imprison, torture, maim, rape, and murder the same Syrian civilians. Now, just weeks after these barbaric sanctions were enforced, American crocodile tears came pouring out about Syrian suffering, claims that Moscow and Damascus are allegedly preventing the delivery of humanitarian aid. More hot air from American hypocritical talking heads who don't actually care about the Syrians' well-being. Okay, now this is a bizarre story here, and it's coming out of Sputnik News. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Mohsen Bahavand alleges that Tehran immediately rejected Washington's attempt at preventing a retaliatory attack by Iranian forces shortly after the January assassination of Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Quds Force Commander Major General Qasem Soleimani, which has been declared illegal and a war crime by the United Nations. The U.S. sent a message to Iran via the Swiss ambassador to demand Iran not to give a response, but it was rejected immediately, meaning that Iran is still considering what they're going to do about this. They did go to the UN. They did play by the rules. The UN said, yes, that was a war crime. There was no indication that Soleimani was engaged with or about to engage with an attack on the United States. Now, Iran has contacted the JCPOA, the Joint Commission Plan of Action, about the Europeans' violation of commitments. We've talked about the P5+1 deal in the past about how Iran complied with it completely, and the United States did not, and then ultimately unilaterally pulled out of the deal. But Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister for Political Affairs Abbas Araghchi says 3 European signatories to the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran have not abided by their commitments, and this is why Iran has requested activation of the deal's dispute resolution mechanism in a letter to the European Union's foreign policy chief. See, they're still trying to play by the rules. They kept their commitments. These other countries did not. The EU foreign policy chief said on July 3rd that he'd received a letter from Iran that demands triggering the dispute resolution mechanism of the nuclear deal over the failure of the 3 European signatories to the agreement to honor their commitment. And apparently the 3 nations involved are France, Germany, and Britain. And they have not lived up to their commitments in the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, otherwise known as the P5+1. All right, the Yemeni army has launched fresh retaliatory attacks on Saudi Arabia. Oil company Saudi Aramco operates a 400,000-barrel-a-day refinery in the Red Sea city of Jizan. Yemen's army, backed by Ansarullah fighters, launched a number of retaliatory operations deep inside Saudi territories in response to a Saudi spike of airstrikes. The Army spokesman, Yahya Sarria, said that the recent operations have hit their targets in airports of Jazan, Asir, and Kamas Mushait, including a gathering of senior military officers, among them Saudi military officials in Al Tadween military camp in Marib. These operations have been carried out in retaliation to the spike of Saudi airstrikes, including Sunday's strike on a house in the Washaha area of Hajin province, resulted in the killing of 10 members of one family, among them the mother and 2 of her infants. Yeah, I guess you couldn't have something like that happen and remain entirely cheerful about that. We've been talking about this deal that Iran and China are putting together for mutual security, mutual economic gain, manufacturing, closer commercial ties. And apparently a major part of this is to ditch the dollar, for Iran and China to directly exchange their own currencies between each other, which allows them to bypass U.S. sanctions. Now, this is going to be great for Iran. And what the net result of all of this is, Iran is being driven into China's sphere of influence. The United States is destroying its own foreign policy with this bullying approach to all the other countries. Nobody wants to be near a bully. And it means that if we try and bomb Iran into going back and selling themselves into slavery to the Federal Reserve, we'll be at war not just with Russia, but with China. Very, very dangerous. Very dangerous. But the rest of the world is trying to get away from the U.S. dollar because the U.S. government weaponized it. Okay, over in China again, the J-20B stealth fighter, the world's third operational fifth-generation aircraft, has gone into mass production, and Beijing is placing heavy orders. And apparently they've sorted out the jet's early problems, and it's ready to be fielded. It looks like the F-35 is now in second place, at least. There's a video that we linked to. The most advanced version of the Russia's flying tank, the Sukhoi 25, filmed in detail from the cockpit. This appears to be the Russian version of the Thunderbolt, the A-10 attack plane. It's made for ground support operations. It's heavily armored. And the Sukhoi 25 is among the most used Russian aircraft, having left a mark in over a dozen armed conflicts since the Soviet intervention in Afghanistan, which they lost, but the airplane did very well. It's dubbed the flying tank due to its heavy armor plating and overall resilience. Its primary task is to provide close air support for ground forces, taking out high-value enemy targets on the battlefield. In other words, it's a tank killer. So the video that was published last Sunday by Zvezda, the official channel of the Russian military, shows the test flights of a pair of Sukhoi 25 SM-3s, shot by multiple cameras from inside and outside the cockpit. The footage shows the planes firing weapons and making combat maneuvers. It looks very, very impressive. All right, economic news now. A record 5.4 million Americans have lost their health insurance since the pandemic, amid unprecedented job losses. And given medical costs these days, that is a serious, serious hit. So apparently 5.4 million more Americans have found themselves uninsured between February and May. Just that 4-month period. Unemployment is at 4 million a year. The GDP will take 5 years to recover, and the biggest peacetime deficit ever. We haven't seen economic strain like this since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Now, analysts are still out there saying that at some point gold is going to leave stocks in the dust. The stock market is doing very well, but you need to understand those rising stock prices have to do with companies letting people go. Because obviously when you start firing staff and workers, your profits go up and the stockholders are happy and they'll buy more stocks. It's an inverse relationship. A high stock price doesn't necessarily mean your company's doing well. It just means there's an opportunity for a quick profit here. Meanwhile, Russia has supplied the first shipment of Arctic oil to China. Russian energy giant Gazprom Neft has started supplying crude from its Novi Port Arctic oil field to China. The first batch amounted to 144,000 tons of crude was delivered to Yantai port, the company announced. The tanker route from Murmansk to Yantai crosses the Arctic seas and 3 oceans and takes 47 days. Successful experience in the sale of Arctic oil in the European market and in-depth insight of Asia-Pacific markets allows Gazprom Neft to offer Novi Port oil with a unique year-round logistics scheme to Asian partners. Kroger markets have stopped giving change in coins due to the claimed coin shortage. I'm not sure how real that is. And they're now going to put leftover money, your change, if you will, on loyalty cards instead, which is a really clever way to keep people coming back to your market, which I don't know if they really need that, because I had one experience with a Kroger market, and I loved the place. I thought it was great. The supermarket chain said it will not be providing coins to cash-paying customers as change for the time being due to a coronavirus-induced coin shortage. Now, we were at a local general store called Dollar General today. They had a sign up saying, please pay an exact payment because we're short of coins as well. So I took my little baggie of coins that have built up over the last couple of weeks. There wasn't that much in it, about 16 bucks. I took it over to the bank. Their coin machine was broken. So I don't know what's going on out there. Is this the first step toward pushing us toward a cashless society? Get everybody to use cards, even if they're just the loyalty cards? Over in Great Britain, they've banned China's Huawei from its 5G network after months of pressure from the Trump administration. I'm sure that China is very unhappy about that. The British government announced early today that it was banning Chinese state telecommunications company Huawei from its high-speed 5G telecommunications network. Where will they go for the 5G hardware now? Well, it just so happens the United States has a few companies that are manufacturing 5G equipment, so you can just go buy the stuff from them. Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. On Monday, yesterday, the U.S. Conference of Mayors published a letter in which they backed the idea of Democrats to create a reparations commission so the idea of slavery reparations to 41 million Black Americans could be examined. Now, I'm against the idea of reparations because it's making people who did not commit a crime make payments to people who were not the victim of a crime. Everybody who was a slave owner is dead. Everybody who was a slave is dead. That's just the way it is. Get used to it. And demanding reparations for slavery of the ancestors makes about as much sense as my going up to Canada to the descendants of the escaped slaves that were helped through the Underground Railroad, of which my family ran a station. I'd say, you owe me, I helped the transit. Ridiculous. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. Coming up on the second hour of our program, we're going to go ahead and open the phone lines now. You can start calling on in with your questions and opinions and stuff. Meanwhile, the Bureau of Indian Affairs has ordered a pipeline company to pay $187 million for trespassing on the Fort Berthold Reservation in North Dakota. Well, I think that's a good thing because we've seen these pipeline companies have a bad habit of just running their pipelines through land they don't own. And you have to realize somewhere in this oil pipeline company, there's an executive who was being shown a map of the pipe route. And I'm sure that one of the underlings saying, you know, we're going across land that we don't have the right to. And the executive said, go ahead and do it. We'll solve them this later. Those Native Americans, you know, they're not a big problem to us. Well, they ought to be. You know, land ownership is land ownership. And let's be honest, the Native Americans got a raw deal. Now, we're not talking about reparations for past injustice right here. We're talking about injustices happening today, now, before our very eyes. Okay, let's talk about corporate media, specifically computers. Apparently, Google search upgrades make it harder for websites to win traffic. If you type a query into the Google search bar on a smartphone, there's a good chance the results will be dominated by paid advertisements. Now, this stems from a decision in 2015 to test a fourth ad rather than 3 at the top search results. And I noticed that, and it's one of the reasons why I don't use Google all that much anymore. But the era of free news for Facebook and Google may soon be over. because they've operated like shop windows for news stories, supplying their billions of visitors with free snippets and information from articles across the web. And antitrust tussle that's coming to a head in Australia may change that. Australia's competition regulator will this month publish draft rules forcing the two U.S. tech giants to share revenue generated from news with the original publishers, including Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation. Okay, we're going to go take a phone call from David in Boston. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha, Michael. Michael, Dr. Anthony Fauci of CDC and all that business, but, he's been working with the Communist Chinese for years, even before this COVID-19, this current virus. He's very close with the Communist Chinese. In fact, they've actually made him an honorary member of the Chinese Communist Party, and the Chinese Communists have great affection for Dr. Fauci. They love him. He's their favorite American, and they love him so much they've even given him like a very affectionate, like a pet name. You know what the Communist Chinese call Dr. Fauci? What their pet name for him is?
No.
I'll tell you. They call him Fauci Chi. The Communist Chinese call Dr. Fauci Fauci Chi.
Which translates
that's their pet
as?
Name for him. Huh?
I said, what does that translate as?
I don't know, but I got to translate as something. I don't know what it means, but they love him. It's like a pet name that they've given him. He's like their favorite pet American is Fauci Chi.
All right, well, David, we're going to have to let you go. We got to take a break for station identification. Thank you for the phone call. We'll be right back. And aloha, welcome back to our show. Hour number 2, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And interesting little story here. Charles Wade is a prominent Black Lives Matter organizer and co-founder. Apparently last month he was arrested for human trafficking and prostitution last month. And they arrested him at a Howard Johnson Inn in College Park, Maryland. Apparently he'd been pimping out a 17-year-old girl. So Wade was charged with 7 counts relating to felony human trafficking and prostitution, but then he posted a $25,000 bond after his arrest. So that's the leadership they have over at Black Lives Matter. Now, story coming on out of MrMara.com here. Member of Parliament Jackie Doyle Price accuses the transgender, say that 3 times fast, lobby groups of turning gender stereotyping into a science by encouraging girls as young as 10 to believe they are not female and to take puberty-blocking drugs. I agree with those who say this is child abuse. These kids aren't old enough to understand what sexuality is. Until they go through puberty, it's all abstract, and they're subject to huge amounts of peer pressure. In fact, there was a study that was showing that a lot of young boys who were coming out and saying that they were trans or that they were gay were basically succumbing to peer pressure to do so. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. I guess what you could say to sum up this regarding this coronavirus is figures lie and Fauci figures.
Yes.
and within that, what I'd like to relate is, we've seen this go on for years and years and years. We saw during the Vietnam War that the numbers were always skewed and given some other type of meaning with our war dead. And then we saw the same numbers when it came to the cost of living and things like that. We saw all the tenements change, and all of a sudden the cost of living wasn't so bad. And then we saw the same thing with the unemployment figures, and then we see the same thing with the numbers in the stock market and unemployment, and on and on and on. So that's the only way I can summarize it: is figures lie and Fauci figures, and we've all been taken to summarize it, except for Dustin. Now, Dustin, I don't know if he thinks he's been taken, but I think Dustin's holding out this eternal light of hope that he's going to don that face mask and come out like a knight in shining armor. I don't know.
It could happen.
Yeah, but Michael, this is just so ridiculous with this stuff, and what a blow! What a blow it is delivered to the country and to an already staggering economy. It's just, and for these people to sit here and clamor over it and not repel themselves from it, not do a total 180 in dismay, and absolutely rebuke any of this. I mean, there's where we should be out there like Black Lives Matter and one of these groups and saying, you know what, we're not shutting down the economy. We're going to the stores, the restaurants, the manufacturing. We're going to frequent them, and we're going to make this, keep this economy on track because it's in our interest. But we don't. We're like lemmings, Michael. We just, anything we're told, we just run around here and we nod our heads and like a walrus. We just sit there and shake our heads, and it's ridiculous. And if we don't do something, if we let this go around, and this how they've already lined up this coronavirus 2 and 3 and whatever they come up with next, I mean it'll be amazing if we can just get some kind of semblance to this economy back together so that we got some kind of good numbers to at least bounce off of. But those are my comments, Michael, and keep up the great show, and thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the comments, and thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go here. Phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Now, yesterday, a federal judge permanently blocked Georgia's 2019 heartbeat abortion law, meaning that if you could detect the fetus's heartbeat, you could not abort it. But apparently the federal judge found that this violates the U.S. Constitution. Now, I've read the Constitution many times. I don't see where the judge came out with this idea that I don't know. Anyway, U.S. District Judge Steve Jones ruled against the state in a lawsuit filed by abortion providers and an advocacy group. Now, Jones had temporarily blocked the law in October. It never went into effect. The new ruling permanently enjoins the state from ever enforcing it. Jones said that part of the law violates the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Well, I'm going to have to go back and reread that 14th Amendment. Okay, go back to the phones. Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
How you doing, Mike? Mike, a couple of things. We were talking before about, again, messing around South China Sea and jerking around with Iran and all this other stuff. I mean, the gall of these people, Mike. The gall of these people. All the problems we've got here at home. All the, the huge unemployment with this stupid virus still being, supposedly spreading around and destroying the economy. They have the gall to be going around the world messing around. The China Sea is none of our business. Neither are those islands. And I'll tell you something, too. I think the military, personally, is ready to revolt. They're ready to, have a mutiny. I saw something the other day how so-called COVID soldiers are being treated at Fort Hood, Texas. And boy, the guy who was doing the video was pissed. I mean, he was pretty much saying you shouldn't join the military. He was telling people he's using a bad cuss words and they cut him off. Okay, but they're if I was in the military today, they'd have to throw me in the stockade. That's the Army version of the the Navy brig. They'd have to throw me in the stockade. I mean, there's no way I would go into that war. I would do that worse for them. Okay, this is and on top of that, we got all this stuff going still with the COVID, which I think is probably a lot of this is just nonsense. I made a good video today, by the way, on my YouTube channel.
Yes.
I hope some of you guys watch it. I sent you a copy, by the way, to your phone number. Again, all these so-called cases, and listen to this, Justin. This is for you too, okay? All these so-called cases are not really cases. They're people either having some kind of contact with the virus, and their body did what it's supposed to do, shrugged it off, and or false positives because they may have had a cold in the last year or so and it may have shown, or they might have been dumb enough to get a flu vaccination. You know, something you should never really do, but unfortunately too many people do. And these can all create false positives, or again, you might have some kind of contact with that thing. But yet, they're using it to scare the you-know-what out of people. And unfortunately, it's working. And you got all these hypochondriacs now lining up to get the stupid tests. I wouldn't trust that test as far as I could throw it. On top of that, there's always a possibility they might try to infect you with a virus using those tests. How can people be this dumb? If you don't have anything wrong with you, why are you going to get tested? If you have the sniffles or something like that, go home, get some chicken soup or whatever, like your mom used to say, or drink some tea with honey. Nice green tea is good, some organic green tea, and sweat it out and get rid of it. That's all. You don't have to get a stupid COVID test. What is the matter with people, Mike? I don't understand this anymore. And you don't have to wear that mask. If anything, that mask is going to make you sick, because all it does is cuts down on your immune system, makes you breathe in your own waste, and you're not getting the oxygen you need. I feel so sorry for these people that got to work for a whole shift, 8 hours or so. I got a friend of mine who still works the correction system. I used to work with the Saints of Prison. He used to work with him. He's got to wear that stupid mask his whole shift, 12 hours. It's 12-hour shifts there. And it's hot weather today. Can you imagine? It's like around this time of the year with Amarillo, it gets around 100 degrees a lot of times, okay? And there's no air conditioning in that prison. He's got to wear that stupid mask all the time. They'll say they'll write him up if he does. That's what the problem is, Mike. Stop the testing. Stop getting the test. Stop being a hypochondriac. You're only helping these people get that vaccine together, and then we really got something to worry about if you take that thing. That thing is no good. It is going to kill a lot of people. It's going to sterilize a lot more people, and it's going to change your DNA. That's what it's meant to do. This is everything that Bill Gates wants. This is his dream.
Yep.
Bill Gates is evil, plain and simple. He is an evil, evil, evil man. I call him the most evil man since Adolf Hitler, and he's much more dangerous than Hitler ever was. Because he's got germs and all kinds of other vaccines that he works with, and and he looks and acts like a little wimp. He is a little wimp, but he looks that part and talks that part, like that. He is going, but yet he is more dangerous than Hitler ever was. He doesn't need stormtroopers. He doesn't need the Panzer tanks. He doesn't need the Stuka bombers. He doesn't need all that stuff. He's got those germs, and he's got those vaccines, and boy, is he want to give it to you all. Okay? And stop playing into the games, folks. Justin, get from under your bed. Take this stupid mask off. Go outside and get some sunshine. Oh, it's beautiful here today. It's 90 degrees and sunny here in where I live. I would spend a lot of the time outdoors. Okay? It's a little hot side, but, it's good for you. All right? And that's what people should be doing. Drink plenty of water, though, if you do that, And, eat well. Eat your organic foods. Take your vitamins. Take your vitamins. Don't eat the garbage GMO foods. Also, Gates puts out. Be fine. There's no guarantees. We're not guaranteed to live a day in this world. But you should be fine. Okay? Got it, Dustin? Calm down. You should be fine. All right? Get rid of the mask. Get out from under your bed or the basement or wherever you're at, and calm down. Go outside, get you some fresh air, get some exercise. I can't even go to the gym still here in with this governor. Fortunately, I got my own exercise equipment and stuff like that, but it's still not the same thing as going to the gym. That really pisses me off, Mike. That really does, because you got all kinds of junk food places. They're open, but no. They don't want you going to the gym, though. They don't want you doing something healthy, This is what the whole problem is, Mike. And that's, like I said, Dustin, please listen to me. Go to my YouTube channel, Dustin. I think you should go there anyway, okay? See what some of the things I say. You want to argue with me about it? Make some comments. Fine. I love it. I love it, Not everybody agrees. But for crying out loud, people got to wake up. and you got to stop being hypochondriacs. This is basically a cold, a bad cold. In some cases, not even a bad cold. A lot of people get it and don't even know they have it. Some people may get the sniffles or something like that. Okay? Half the people that died were in these nursing homes, and this was done purposely. This is a real scandal. That was mass murder done by Cuomo in New York, this creep in California, Newsom, that was now locked the state down again. And people, it's another thing. Everybody got to get together and do not obey these edicts. Open your businesses, keep them open. People, take the mask off, okay? Police ain't going to do nothing. They can't even control these idiots like Black Lives Matter and the other one, Antifa. They can't even control them. Think they're going to be able to control y'all? No. And they're not going to try. Just take the stupid mask off, go out in the streets, do what you want to, get the social distancing, okay? And have fun. Enjoy the sunshine. Enjoy the nice weather. And businesses open up, and we should be okay. The economy hopefully will improve. And Trump, up to you too. Unlock this country, okay? Unlock the country. Get rid of Fauci. As a matter of fact, I would arrest Fauci personally and take him down to Gitmo and see what he's found out, whether he was involved anything in this thing, whether there is any kind of biological weapon. I'm also worried about what still might be coming. I'm seeing a new swine flu, a new this, a new that. You know,
How
who
about
knows
the
if
Black Death?
Huh?
How about the Black Death, bubonic plague? They've got that in China now, and it's been detected now in Europe.
Right. Who knows what they might try to get a few fleas, mix them up with the bubonic plague and drop them on us. Okay? I don't trust Gates. I don't trust Fauci. They need to be arrested, I think, and taken to Gitmo. If necessary, waterboard them. Okay? I mean, really. That's about all I got to say, okay?
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Starfire in Pennsylvania. Hello, Starfire. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. This is me again. I'm talking
Hello,
about
you again.
my cousin that lives in Oklahoma City. Do you know they have proven our rights to have over half the state of Oklahoma?
Yes, I heard that.
They have proven it. And the pipelines that they're running through, they have been billions and billions, trillions of dollars from it, right?
Yes.
What penny did they ever give us to pollute our water, tear up our land? So what right do they have? You know, sometimes I get so frustrated, but my people have been around for 7 generations. This is the 8th generation of children coming up. And you know what? We're going to be here when the white man's nuts. And you know how I feel.
Yes,
and
obviously.
And I got one more, and only one more thing else to say. What if you talking about these mask things, right?
Yes.
My husband took and blew his vape, and it went right through the mask. There ain't nothing stopping it. And the germs, they say, that are supposed to be smaller than the smoke.
Yeah.
So it's going right through. So what good are they? I have to wear one 4 hours a day. What? I'm sorry, Mike.
I said that's an interesting test of a mask, whether smoke or vape will get through it.
Try it.
I will. I plan
on it.
I have some N95. I'll try it with that.
And I tell you one.
Make you wear a mask and you can't see them sticking your tongue out.
Did you hear my husband? He said they make us wear the mask so they cannot see us sticking our tongue out at them.
That's a good one.
Okay, I'm going to let you go, Mike, because you got a lot of people.
All right, well, thank you very much.
And tell my lovely Miss Claire hi for me, please.
I certainly will. I certainly will. All right, well, thank you for the call. We'll switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. Peter, I'm going to have to take you through the next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Well, I might start out with, I'd like to tell you that generally agree with Mark, but it's not easy to take off your mask, and when you're not allowed to go to work unless you do that, or
yes,
or you can't go to class. My daughter, I think I told you she's going to be a freshman next year. Listen to what her freshman experience is going to be. Only the freshmen are allowed on campus for the fall quarter. This is at Harvard. Only the freshmen are allowed. They're not allowed to leave the campus. They're not allowed to have people visit their room. Everybody gets a single room. Since nobody else is there, everybody gets a single room. They can only visit the buildings on campus, the infirmary, and they're talking about possibly the gym and possibly the library. That's possibly. Nobody knows yet. And even though she's going to be on campus at great expense, she's taking her classes alone in her room. Oh, no meals, no communal meals, no cafeteria. They bring the meals to the room. The cafeteria staff with masks and all that stuff. And then the classes, even though you're on campus and you can see the buildings all around you, are all going to be online. Now, what kind of a life is that? She's like Julian Maxwell.
Peter, stay on the line. Got to take a break here, and we'll be right back to you after these two words. Welcome back to our show here, and once again, a reminder that Republic Broadcasting is in a permanent state of fundraising. We don't have big pocket donors. I mean, George Soros does not return my phone calls. I don't know what's going on there. But we need your help, and again, thanks to those of you who have helped. And the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. I thank you. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones. We were talking with Peter in Los Angeles, and Peter, it sounds like your daughter's first quarter at Harvard is not going to be very pleasant at all.
It's like Julian Assange, Mike, really.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a whole lot of difference, really. She'll be confined to her room. And I want you, we're not rich, right? At all. We're not actresses or presidents of companies. She got this because she's valedictorian, president of this, president of that, perfect scores type of stuff. She's had a sign over her desk for 3 years. I want to go to Harvard. And she did it, right? So she's very highly motivated, very bright. But at any rate, what kind of a payoff is that? And now you have the information that even if you've had it before, you barely build up any antibodies. So it's not even, it's probably not going to happen that a vaccine that's worth anything ever happens, because you can't build up antibodies. And so we're going to either have to just brave it out and this is just one more thing we've got to face, like crossing the busy street or whatever. It's just one more hazard. It hits guys like you and me, our age and all that, harder than other. But you know what? We're supposed to die, Mike, at 74. That's what the actuaries say.
Yeah.
Right? I'm willing to take the risk, of all this, being at an at-risk age group, so that my daughter and other people can have a freaking life, and there's an economy to come back to.
Yes.
And at any rate, there's one more thing I want to say. They've talked about, the Texas Rangers. That's apparently too racist now.
Yeah.
They're going to change the name on that, and they're talking about the Redskins are changing the name to the leading candidate is the Red Tails. Now, do you know who the greatest? Can you name a World War II fighter group?
Yeah, the Tuskegee Airmen. They were the Red Tails.
They were. Can you name another one?
No, I can't.
And you know what? I know you know your history. No, almost nobody else can. But to let you know that they were in combat for 2 years, and I'm taking nothing away from them. They anteed up and they did their job. But they didn't have one ace, not one ace. 2 years of combat, they transitioned to the best planes as they came available, from the P-40 to the P-47 to the P-51. So they always had the best planes along with everybody else, and yet. They, as a group, they shot down 112 enemy aircraft. You know what the leading European group had shot down, aerial? 720. 720. 6 times more, 7 times more. No aces, by the way. The leading guy was a guy named Lee Archer with 4.5 kills. And the Air Corps awarded him every single thing that he claimed that he got. And it was 4.5 was his score. You need 5 to make ace. A half is for a strafing run, right? So I just checked recently, and they've upgraded him now within the last 2 years. They've given even what he never even asked for, so that they would have 1 ace. There were guys, that had. There was a guy named David McCampbell, who was a Navy Hellcat pilot, who shot down 9 guys in one mission. 9 guys in one mission. That's the top 3 Tuskegee Airmen kill rate in one mission. Those guys saw combat for 2 years. So the fact that you don't know that the leading squadrons had 720, they had 112. Now,
okay, you remember Chuck Yeager?
5 in 1 day, and a jet.
Yeah, 5 in 1 day.
And a jet, and a jet. Got it in the landing pattern, but whatever. So when
still, it was a hard kill.
Yeah. There's been a number of guys that did 5 in 1 day, but 4.5 in 2 years is the best they did, and they upgraded that. They got an affirmative action boost to ace. So, but that's all you know. And these are the culture wars, right? So they're going to name this team that's been around forever in Washington, a venerable team, and going to change it to a mediocre at best, performing World War II fighter group that got an enormous amount of press, but did barely anything. You can check those numbers out. Remember, look it up. 720 for the leading squadrons and groups, 112 for them, 4.5 for the top guy. So at any rate, but yet they're venerated now, and U.S. Grant gets torn down. It's just ridiculous.
It really is. Okay, we got to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials. We have more callers waiting on the line, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go right back to the phones to Glenn in Philadelphia. Hello, Glenn. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. Good afternoon.
Okay, let's switch over to Daniel in British Columbia then. And Glenn, if you can sort of get your thoughts together, call back in. Daniel, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. There was a little bit of a story that was, I think it was on Axios. I'm not sure. They were trying to say that the term Sleepy Joe wasn't getting as much traction on Google as Crooked Hillary was for Trump.
Yes.
And I thought it was kind of interesting because they're trying to make it seem like Trump doesn't have the same momentum he did attacking his opponent. But if you go and type in Creepy Joe, as much or even more than Crooked Hillary got. So it's obvious they're trying to cover the fact that Biden's got this problem with his touchy-feeliness, and there's a couple of good parody videos that just came out. For anyone out there that hasn't seen it, especially Democratic voters, I mean, there's no way you could vote for this guy just on that principle alone. Now, you can criticize Trump all you want, but I don't know. It's just if this is the best they got for the Democrat, I think they're going to probably slip Hillary in at the last minute. No, that's like I kind of agree with you, but she's going to just have a brokered convention and have her pop up at the last minute as a saving grace. After Joe Biden's, his memory keeps going, and then I think they're trying to keep a lid on this, the creepy part, but I don't think it's really happening.
Go ahead. That was following him even before he became a presidential candidate, and it's going to be a hard moniker for him to try and lose.
Exactly. I mean, even if Trump came out and said Creepy Joe instead of Sleepy Joe, people might go, "Oh, what's this about?" But anyways, another thing I wanted to mention. With this Roger Stone guy, when he was arrested, they had something like 37 FBI agents storm his house.
Pre-dawn raid.
With CNN already alerted to the fact.
Yes.
And I compare that to Ghislaine or Ghislaine or whatever her name is, Maxwell, who no one has heard a peep of. It was just like on the hush hush. She just happened to be arrested at this house, and I just thought I'd point out that glaring sort of contradiction. Who knows if she'll get justice or if she's going to, spill the beans on anyone, because she's protecting Israel, and I think because her father was a high-level, intelligence asset, I think her loyalty lies to Israel. So she's going to keep quiet no matter what, and they could do a little situation just like they did with Jeffrey Epstein, whether she gets whisked out of the jail in the midnight hours and say that she was, shanked by a fellow inmate or something like that. Who knows? Yeah. The amount of wet work we've seen over the years, and she's definitely up there with the most wanted people alive. And I think the fact that all they talk about, even on the Netflix thing of Jeffrey Epstein, is that she there's no connection to Israel. They never mention Israel at all.
Of course not.
The whole honey trap thing is, you can't talk about it. So I just thought I'd remind your listeners about that. So.
Okay. Well, I'm surprised that she's still alive, to be very honest, because we do know she is in fact giving up names and information in some of the videos that she had. Although maybe the FBI just found the stuff on her property up there in New Hampshire. So, but yeah, it's a real mess, and I'm sure the rush is on to try and keep the lid on all of this, and how many people were just involved in this underage whatever that was going on here. But yeah, it was a honey trap. It involved underage girls, and apparently, along with Ghislaine, there were two other women who were helping to recruit young girls, with offers of modeling contracts and things like that.
Yeah, I just noticed, because I have been following this even before her arrest. There was a story about her, possibly being in Paris.
Yes.
It showed where her bolt hole, or whatever they call it, was. It was literally walking distance to the Israeli embassy, which I thought was rather interesting, because Paris is a massive city.
Yeah.
I've been there several times, and it's immense. So just that coincidence alone, where you could literally, walk to the embassy from her house, I found a little bit interesting. On a sad note, I know you're probably a fan of the show Mythbusters. The Japanese gentleman, I don't know if you covered this already, but he died of a brain aneurysm, I think, yesterday.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, he was only 49 years old. So.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah. I'll let you go.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. And I'm a fan of Mythbusters. And God, I'm blanking on the guy's name, but that's awfully young to die. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Grant. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And yeah, that's a real shame. He started before he was hired by Mythbusters. He was on BattleBots, and he was a roboticist, and apparently did very well there. And he was recruited by Mythbusters, and that's a real shame. Okay, we're going to try Glenn in Philadelphia again. Glenn, are you there?
Yes, Mike, I am. Yeah, when you came back from that last break just before I came home, I heard the choppiness kicking in. I thought it was on your end, but we're here.
Okay, yeah, I was hearing choppiness. So what's on your mind?
Well, each night I now listen to a PhD virologist by the name of Henry L. Nyman, who's on another network hosted by another host who shall remain nameless, right? You know him fairly well. But Henry Nyman is adamant. I mean, or both he and the host are adamantly anti-Trump for starters, but so they spend much of the show. But he is, a virologist, and he presents a lot of technical data and explains a lot of what's going on statistically and numerically, and with probabilities and stuff like that. And he is has a dismal perspective about where things are going with the COVID virus for the fall here. And I hear, the callers calling in. I myself am a registered nurse by profession. I work in a comparatively low-risk home care setting, and I thank God I haven't missed a day of work through all this, nor has anyone in my work sphere of work contacts contracted the COVID virus. So again, I'm grateful for that. But I put on my mask. I dutifully put on my mask when I go to the food store and big box store and what have you. I constrain my movements a little bit, but I tell you, the cacophony of contradictions and the muddying of the waters with all this. It's too many tests. It's not enough tests. And supposedly now, according to Nyman, these numbers are going up, and they're getting exponential. And at some point, the increase in deaths, there will be a commensurate increase in deaths. You can blame you're seeing more diagnoses and confirmed cases and stuff like that, and everything with the testing. But he's saying that as this goes on, the numbers of deaths are going to start to rise again. And unfortunately, I've had neighbors and some family members who recently lost the man of the house, the father, and husband. And it's very, it's very sad. I can understand it's easy to be dismissive when you're not getting tagged, and when you run across, now this person was older, but I'm also aware of people in their 30s and 40s who are getting this and passing away. And I totally hear the clamor. I know it's summer. I know it's sunny and bright, and everyone wants to get out and do things and forget this ever happened. But I just feel like, Henry Nyman is on the, is making some valid arguments. I really expect to see things worsening in this regard in the August and September for sure. So I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not. I wear my mask. I'm not locked in on either side because I'm empathetic to both sides. But at the moment, I have to give the statistical edge to people like Nyman, and I don't want to. I have elderly parents. I don't want to see get this thing. I myself am coming and going each day. So, like I say, I do still, basically from my perspective, I do still limit my comings and goings, my exposure, and I do put on my mask when I go to the store. That's about it. But I just want to, I don't think it's a hoax. I do think the numbers are going to burgeon in the coming months, and I think it's going to be a problem. Oh, I would point out, that Nyman says this mystery viral pneumonia in Kazakhstan near the borders of China and Russia. He maintains that is the Italian strain. That region was not subjected to the more virulent Italian strain. Initially, it was the Wuhan strain. You had the Wuhan strain, the Princess Cruise Ship strain, and the Italian strain. And what's happening is this Italian strain is spreading throughout the world. And what they're getting into is what they're finding is the Italian strain. It's just they've not correctly assayed it as yet.
Okay.
So that's interesting. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Doug in Pennsylvania. Hello, Doug. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I think we got disconnected.
No, you're on the air.
Am I on the air? It sounded
You're
like I
on
got
the air.
disconnected.
Nope.
I heard that man talking about the aces in the Tuskegee Air Group, but the leading ace in World War II European theater was Francis Stanley Gerbeski.
Yes.
From Oil City, Pennsylvania. I knew him personally and had talked to him many times. And I think in his career, he shot down 34 and a half aircraft. So he did pretty good. And there are a number of, I do know different squadrons, flights, and groups through World War II there, but he was quite a guy. His son is a doctor at the VA center in Oil City. So just a note, he volunteered as a Polish American before we actually got into the war over there. So
Yes.
just a note. Good show, Mike.
Thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go and switch over to Tom in Florida. Tom in Florida, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Pig. No.
Tom? Okay, let's leave Tom off for a while here and go to Andy in Texas. Andy in Texas, welcome to the show. What's on your mind? We lost Andy.
No, you didn't. I'm here.
Okay, what's on your mind?
Oh, hey, yeah, no, I just want to say this is a sad day for American veterans and whatnot, and the people who are actually in the regular military right now, live and whatnot. This is a real big shame to us because we were told that we were going to fight for the freedom of this nation. We went to several different countries. We did what we had to do. I think we were going to keep us free. Then we get this guy named George W. Bush, who comes out and says that the Muslims hate us for our freedoms. So
Yes.
what's the first thing he does? He writes the Patriot Act, which stills our freedom. And then later on, we get this black guy named Obama. I guess he's got a white mom, so he's not all black, but he comes out with the NDAA, which restricts us even more. Now, the thing is that they keep everything they tell us is opposite the way I'm seeing it. They're telling us that they're going to keep us free and do this and do that and all this stuff. And look at us. We're under Sharia law right now with these masks. And they're doing something for 5G right now. People would get a handle on what's going on. There's social distancing and that they want to be able to identify from a certain distance and your eye retinas and whatnot. And they're actually taking pictures of people, and they can't do a very good job unless you're 6 feet away. That's the determined rate, because we obviously know that the coronavirus doesn't have a distance or whatnot, but I won't go into that. The point of the matter is that I think it's a very sad day. I do want to say that I'm stuck in California in the high desert in a town called Chelan. And it's a small town. It has one grocery store, and it has some other things or whatnot. But I go downtown, not quite daily, but every other day, and I don't wear it. And you don't have to wear a mask, by the way. Most of these people downtown, now that I've been going there, they've realized that there's not a law to wear a mask. So they recommend that we wear a mask when we come in, but they can't stop you. But I was in the grocery store, the local grocery store, Stater Brothers, it's a pretty good-sized grocery store. It's pretty well packed. But I didn't wear a mask, and I went in there and got all my groceries. I went to the counter, I paid for them, and as I'm walking out, I raised my hands up, scared the living crap out of a bunch of people because I yelled. I said, I implore you, take your mask off. The next thing coming is a vaccine, and you don't want it. And, of course, I walked outside. I couldn't find my ride because the person actually gave me a right to stop at the ride. So I'm stuck in the parking lot, and here comes the manager. He's like, can you just calm it down, dude? I just want to keep my job. I said, well, take your mask off. Stand for something. He said, I need my job. I got to keep my mask off. He didn't even get mad at me. And I understand people who want to do that, but you know what? Your freedom is worth more than your job. Stand up for what you believe in, or don't believe in anything, which is what I'm seeing a lot of people. They don't believe in anything, but this little town here in Sealand, they're starting to get it. Because I go there every single day. I don't wear a mask. I don't do anything. Excuse me. And they don't mess with you until you make a scene like I did at Stater Brothers. Then they come after you and whatnot. But I just want to appeal to the people. I'll let you go because I know Tom's got a lot to say and he's probably on the phone. I just want to appeal to American people. Stop wearing your mask. They cannot arrest everybody. Dude, COVID-19 is a made-up thing. They wanted to see how far they could go to get us to go where they wanted us to go. And so far, so good. And the way they're seeing it is, well, if we can get everybody like this to wear the mask, we can get everybody to take a vaccine. That's all I got, Mike. You have a great day, sir.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're coming up here on our final commercial break for the show today, after which we have Tom is, in fact, back, and we'll be going to him and trying to get to our other callers before the end of the show. We'll be right back. And welcome back to our show, last segment of our program today, and Tom in Florida is back. Tom, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Michael, good day to you. Good day to you. Yeah, Mike, first off, I just want you to know, in Chicago, I saw yesterday they had 16 murders over the weekend. I think they're coming down a little. They're doing a little better in Chicago, but It looks like New York, they had 62 shootings in Chicago, but it looks like New York is going crazy with burglaries, 600 times higher than it was this time last year. So I think New York's going nuts, and I guess Chicago's calming down a little bit. 16 murdered over the weekend instead of usually the high 20s or whatever. But Mike, another thing, the really reason I call it your show is the first hour you were talking about the commercials are making white men look stupid and the white woman looking like the brain.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, I hardly ever see any white men with white women anymore. It's all interracial. They're promoting interracial marriage. And I don't think the black women are too happy about that, Mike, because right now there's 7% of the population in the black. There's 13% blacks in this country. 7% of them, almost 7% of them are black, and they're women. And the males are, I think there's over 1.6 million. I saw it, more black women in the United States than black men. So I think that they're not too happy about that either. I don't think the black females in this country are happy about their men abandoning them for white women, but who am I to say? I'm just saying what I think. But, when you're watching these commercials, who's controlling the media, and we know who it is. They're promoting all this interracial stuff. They're trying to make the black woman like she's the new Rocky, or, it's just insanity what's going on with the media. But, Mike, I was looking at something that was really spectacular. What I saw today was about the slave issue. I didn't realize it, but the slave issue actually ended in 1807. There was no more slaves brought to the United States. I didn't realize that Cuba and Portugal and Brazil, the Portuguese and Sao Paulo, were bringing slaves up till 1865, right after the Civil War ended. Did you know that?
Yes.
In Puerto Rico. I didn't realize that till I just found that out, that the slave trade kept going on in Cuba, Puerto Rico, by the Spanish. The Spanish they did not end the slave trade. The biggest slave trader was a guy named Antonio Lopez. He did 900 voyages across the ocean in slavery. He came out of Barcelona, and I didn't realize this guy, they tore his statue down in 2018 in Barcelona. Did you hear about that?
Yep.
This guy, Antonio Lopez, he was definitely being financed by the House of Rothschild. I believe that one caller, Bob, he was a great call yesterday, was kind of mentioned the Rothschilds. They did finance the slave trade. There's no question about it. They were definitely behind that slave trade, Mike. And the reason the ships were going to the western coast of Africa, picking up all these slaves. But, Mike, I didn't realize also I was wrong on the number. I want to give you the number. The Irish were actually indentured for much longer than I thought. They were indentured for almost 75 years in the United States before the blacks were even brought here.
Yes.
I don't know if you know that. And when the blacks are slowly brought in here slaves to go pick cotton and all that, well, the Irish were indentured for a much longer period than I thought. So,
okay, well, Tom, we're going to have to let you go. We got to let you go. There's the music. All right. Thank you very much there. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of RBN. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please, 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 please donate. We need your help right now. And we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.